What is buffer time? What is buffer time? Is what buffer time?
Hello, buffer timers. We're here again on a Sunday. We're going to be talking about one of the more interesting episodes of Strange New Worlds from this past season, Subspace Rhapsody. I'm Dustin from Best of Trek, Worst of Trek. We'll go up and around.
Up and around. Hi, I'm the X.
Hello, my name is Vanessa, and I have a YouTube channel called I Love Bad Star Trek.
Hi, I'm Ren. You can find me at Ren Rants or Bilo Ren.
And I'm Scott of the channel Opinions No One Cares About. I'd just like to say I love how Pike next to me here looks like he's telling everyone to be excellent to each other.
Oh my god, he so does. So, the most important question of the episode, do you think all systems are stable?
No.
Allegedly.
Yeah, sorry, Norman. We thought about maybe doing a thing and just kind of didn't fall together.
I recorded some songs of me singing, but they just didn't come out right. So I tried. Sorry.
Did you try to find the words, but they don't come out right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I sang in the background in drama club for a reason, so yeah.
I auditioned for the Narnia musical. I auditioned for the Queen because I had very big dreams, and I got cast as Fenris Ulf because of the growly singing. So I won't be inflicting that on anyone.
All right.
Like, I'll sing, but it's not, I don't sing well.
Yeah. I'll say I can sing, but it'll hurt you.
Not in job description. So, is sensing sexual tension an Illyrian trait, or does Una just know La'an too well?
I mean, they are like besties. I love their relationship, and it was really kind of fun seeing them get even closer this season with all of the, like, big revelations for each of their characters.
Yeah, since there was 2 scenes about it, I mean, it almost seemed like an empathic piece, like La'an, or like Una just kind of sensed it in La'an.
I think also
we're just girlfriends.
Right.
I think it's also one of those things when your friend has a really obvious crush, but they're not doing anything about it, and maybe you heard that like the other half also has a crush, and so now you're in this position of like, maybe you should talk to them. You might, and something might happen.
I like how nuanced Una's advice was. Like, you can, talk about this, but be selective about what you share, because, it's already kind of hinky because you're breaking the temporal prime directive by doing it. And this is like a coworker, a superior. So it's hinky on a few levels. So just tread carefully.
Oh, I felt so bad with her with how it worked out too. That like made me so sad. I'm such a shipper. I really liked their chemistry. I was like, yes, let's go for it. I don't care about canon. And then of course it just did not work out in such a big way.
I had already started writing a conspiracy about how Kirk and La'an get together, and then years later, Kirk runs into a fully adult Khan and has to kind of make the decision in his own head, like, so I dated your granddaughter, but you are a villain.
That'd be really good.
I really hope that, like, in the intervals between him saying no and them having this tension, that there was some sort of encounter and some sort of child secret kid that comes out of this.
You need it comes up later. Kid. I mean, Star Trek loves the secret kid.
It's getting a bit too Star Warsy to me to just constantly link up canon characters, or not so much a canon character, but I don't know. I was fine with a rejection. I actually prefer that, because then you kind of have to have what she walked away from this interaction. The lesson was, well, maybe I can be courageous more in the future, which I think is actually a really good development.
It was objectively really good. I'm just a shipper.
I think it's also good to see a Star Trek character take a big swing and a miss. A lot of times when, I mean, the only other character I can think of right away would be Geordi, who does a lot of missing.
Oh my God.
But I think it's been a while since we've had a character who just takes a big chance and loses.
That is true.
Dustin is muted.
It's very
Yeah, that's
humanizing for someone like La'an, for sure. It's very helpful for her character, I think.
I really liked how the episode in general worked with the writer. The songwriters worked with the writers to make sure that they were developing the characters and that they got the sense of the character's voice. And it was sort of a back and forth between the writers and the composers to like what characters they were going to focus on and what they were going to try to bring out in those characters. And I thought that was a really neat thing.
One of my exes and I watched this together because she's like a huge fan of musicals and Star Trek the same. And so this was like a big deal to her. And one of the things that she was very disappointed by was why La'an did not have a song about her feelings to Kirk. Like, why was that not a song? Because
where's my 17th century sea chanty?
Yeah, why was it like this, like flat? I have the pick and choose facts as per una, but at the same time, it's like that should have been a song. This is like really emotional.
Well, she already got the "I Want" song. Every musical has an "I Want" song.
Yeah,
and it's usually, if it's not the big number, it's the big number that ends Act 1. And I think because you think of it in the same way you would think of like Eponine, like it's her big "I Want" song, but you kind of know she's not going to get that. And I think it's very brave of the character to sing this song and to reveal, even though she's only doing it in her quarters, I still feel like it gives her a chance to kind of unload all that emotional baggage in the "I Want" song. And in the end, it's not like I want Kirk. It's I want to be braver and be able to express myself more. So it's not really focused necessarily on her feelings for Kirk. It's about being able to express her emotions in general and not feel like that makes her less than a master.
But she did share this with the hope that something might have happened, because it was a letdown when this does overlap with canon that Kirk does impregnate somebody. So
one thing that I really, really loved was that they made the bold choice to make the music diegetic instead of making it like a dream sequence or one character is under the influence of like an alien, or it so easily could have just basically had no impact on anything because it could have just been a fantasy. And I feel like it takes so much more work to integrate it into the actual plot and story so that all of this emotional singing and stuff has like real payoff. And I think the only other time I've seen that in like a musical episode of a TV show was with like the Buffy musical. And of course, there was like some references and homages there as well. But like the emotional arcs were just so good. And I loved that they were actually part of the story instead of just sort of basically a hollow novel.
Kay Henley, who is one of the composers, the lead singer for Letters to Cleo, was not a Star Trek fan. She had seen some of TOS, but her little nephew was the Star Trek nerd. So she's on the phone with her, I believe he's in his teenage years, nephew, getting like the lowdown on like words and So there was this one story they told about how they really wanted to use the phrase prime directive because they just liked how it sounded, but they couldn't find a good place to put it in until they figured out Spock's little comeback, and then they were like, oh, that's where it goes.
So good.
Gonna have here and now stuck in my head for a while now, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Is Uhura at her most badass in this episode? Especially towards the beginning, where she just opens and she is doing everything for everyone. I feel like she got more here
She's
than
always
in
monitoring
all of
comms.
TOS combined.
Yeah, I was when I was watching this with Rave.
Fair.
We noticed we were making comments that like Uhura never had a station like that. And the only thing you ever really saw her use was her earpiece. Like sometimes she would turn around and push a button or two. But this is like the whole comm system laid out for just such a situation. But like that it's there and expected to be there.
She was definitely the heart of this episode. Because as she said, she keeps everyone connected. She knows everyone on the ship, even if they don't know her. And it was really her ideas that got them out of this kerfuffle to get everyone to sing, to inspire everyone to sing. That was a stroke of genius. And by the way, electron volts, that's actually a real measurement. I thought that was interesting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was really cool seeing her. She's like, I think the best way to put it, she's like a 23rd century switchboard operator. I know, I've always had
That's exactly
kind of an affection for those.
We immediately, when we were talking about it, both Rave and I went 1 ringy dingy, 2 ringy dingy.
But like she's taking frequencies and decoding them and trying to mathematically figure out, she had all these like equations floating in front of her at one point, mathematically figure out the best solution to the problem, and being able to like use your expertise in a certain area to get to find the solution to the problem was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Does Kirk add anything to this episode? And is it a weird choice that he has come back here again?
He adds sexual tension.
I mean, he provokes La'an's song is really what it comes down to. Is that they had this beautiful singer and they needed to give her a big ass song, and so they brought Kirk on to create La'an's song, to create that drama. I think. Otherwise, you know how I feel. Like I don't think Kirk should be in Strange New Worlds. I don't mind if he shows up once or twice, maybe, but he's practically a recurring character at this point.
I think it has to do with like Pike's limited availability, that he keeps randomly showing up. It's really thin, the reason that he's just there. I mean, I can see that he's like, emotional center of gravity with La'an, and the scene with Una and Kirk, like Una giving Kirk advice was really sweet, but it's like he doesn't really need to be there.
I saw there was a meme that was like, Strange New Worlds and the adventures of What Are You Doing on My Ship?
Yeah.
Although I do think it's interesting this was his first canon appearance, or like in their universe appearance in the series so far, because the first 2 versions of them we saw were in alternate timelines.
No, this is the second time, because the first time was when Pike was fleet captain for the 5 minutes to satisfy canon, and now he's back anyway. So what was the point of, I met him once when he became fleet captain, and they do this little song and dance and joke for us, and
he's like Boner. He's like Boner in Step by Step, or Urkel. He just stops by.
I'm your kooky
neighbor. He's got a shadow, Una, fine, but
I think it's probably because like they had Paul Wesley in like that the finale of season 1, and they were like, oh, he's really charming. He's so charismatic and fun. Let's bring him back again and again.
I really want to highlight what Norman said. I think I'm going to make a little sign that just says, I agree with you, Norman, so I can hold it up. But the idea that Kirk is like Luoxana, where he just shows up when it's plot relevant, you know?
And there it is.
He could work on his outfits, though, if he wants to.
That's what I'm saying. Kirk could use a little more fabulosity, you know?
No blue eyeshadow for
And
starters.
his ship, use their first officer.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting that you got the little first officers dance here, and it pays homage to the Gilbert and Sullivan style songs that Una likes. But I felt like
love
this
so much.
one in particular is probably the most superfluous song of the episode. And it's like, okay.
That's the one I skip when I listen to the
Not a
soundtrack
fan.
for sure. It doesn't do much.
Again, I actually thought, like, okay, this is her advice song that you can connect with your crew emotionally, that keeping a distance from them is actually to your detriment. I like that piece of advice, but she doesn't have to give other pieces of advice to La'an.
Sure.
Like, I like the advice that she gives, but it didn't have to be in song. I swear. Like, I just, like, giving advice twice through music, I don't know if it really adds much.
I think one of my very few negatives of the episode is they gave a lot of stuff to Rebecca Romaine to sing, and they had better singers on that. Like, I know she got her start doing Gilbert and Sullivan, which is why they wrote it into the Una character, but I just don't think her voice stood up against, some of the other real power singers. And so she gets 2 songs. Mm-hmm. And I more dislike the one with La'an because the gravity thing. Like,
yeah, that really lost me.
It was like,
really?
That was so dumb, and I kind of loved it just for how completely absurd and silly it was. And just
it's a campy kind of bad. Yeah.
They committed, okay? They committed to a vibe.
I don't know if I believe Una was has a desire to be in Gilbert and Sullivan musicals to the extent that if it like things were just a little bit different, like that. This is the first time we've heard that, and I wish that was explained a little bit more. But yeah,
no, this is the third time.
Modern in general.
No, I'm saying, like, I know that we know that she likes these musicals, but like to say that I want to be a singer and dancer to the extent that like things were just a little bit different. That's a vastly different thing. Yeah.
That's fair.
Pining for life on the stage.
So, who's the worst singer in this episode? Pike, Spock, M'Benga, or someone else?
M'Benga.
Pike.
Poor M'Benga.
I don't think anyone was like American Idol reject bad.
No. But somebody's objectively got to be the worst out of the main cast. I'm going with M'Benga, but he only has to do like 12 notes in the whole series of things. So,
and even those, it's like, gosh, that feels so.
Yeah. Here's my thing as a singer. There are some people who have too much tissue in their throat to open it correctly to sing, and you can hear it in the way that they speak. And M'Benga has that kind of voice where he probably just has more tissue pushing against his instrument.
And those low notes are super hard to hit with any kind of clarity too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I would think like they would try to gear the song towards him rather than him towards the song, like give him a song that he could work with stylistically, or give him like a spoken word piece or something. But like
in my notes when I was watching the episode for the second time, I wrote down Higgins. Like they could have just had him just speak them very emphatically.
A lot of musicals have like fast-paced sort of speaking pieces that they can sort of cram in there. Yeah, M'Benga only had one line in Ortega's Flies of the Ship. Yes.
Yeah. Once again, Ortega is the pilot. This is very important to understand that Ortega is the pilot.
Yes.
I feel like I think the reason that I rank Anson Mount lower is I feel like they overutilized him a little bit for how, like, okay his voice is.
I loved Private Conversation, though.
Yeah.
It grew on
Exactly.
me
I
after
still love his
multiple
songs.
listenings, but he was just outclassed. Like, when you compare, like, the best singers in this episode with the worst singers in this episode, it's just such a totally different story than if it's just, like, compared to your average Joe, because, like, the best singer in this episode has won a Grammy. Like,
Although we can go back to one of my another main complaint is you had Carol Kane. You had Carol Kane. She didn't get one. I think she got one solo line and sang backup. And I'm like, that to me, that's like having Mandy Patinkin like have a spoken word in a song. It blew my mind.
yeah. But we had 2 songs with Rebecca Ramirez.
Getting at the whole flies the ship thing, I feel like Ortega's this season has been the embodiment of the real world Schwalens, and she's the one-note character that just wants a fish.
But yeah, even like her lines, even Norman's right. Even her lines just translate to that. She's just like, Ortega's at the helm. Like, we get it. You're Erica Ortegas. The pilot sees him. We get it. You fly the ship.
But you know what I also find really interesting in this part? We don't even know the name of the ops officer, unless I don't. And she's been in just as many like episodes, but we don't know her name. We don't know like what her story is. It's just like, oh, and the ops girl.
One thing I noticed in this episode specifically was whoever was sitting in the big chair that I didn't know their name, when Pike came on the bridge, he actually asked Mitchell for a status report. I was like, what? Then why was this other dude that I've literally never seen before that somebody in the comments is going to be like, oh no, that's Lieutenant so-and-so. Nope, I have no idea. I do know Mitchell, and that's as far as it goes for the extra characters. They haven't fleshed them out.
Flashback.
I think that's just a product of these short seasons with only 10 episodes, is you don't have time for side characters, and I miss the side characters. Although at least they don't do that thing that Discovery did, which is they'd have side characters that do nothing in the background for like an entire season or 2, and then they flesh them out, and then the same episode they get rid of them. I hated that.
Like that robot lady.
It's like
like as soon as somebody develops, they get thrown out of an airlock. That's the Discovery way.
Literally.
That's the Rick Berman way.
Man, love to burn bridges.
So we talked about who the worst singer probably was. Who is the best singer in this one? Not necessarily the best musical number. We'll get to that one, but who is the best singer?
That's a hard distinction because at least two of them have released albums.
It's a fight between Christina Chong and Celia Rose Gooding.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can think of like any points that puts one above the other.
They're both amazing. Like,
the only thing I'm going to say about Celia Rose Gooding's song, I didn't like the choice of song because it was one of those ones that followed up on the back of Spock's big thing. And then we went right into her song, and it's like, you've got this African woman singing a country song, basically. That was the only thing I was like, well, I think we could have gotten a better song in there.
I just saw it as like
but her song was better.
Yeah, I thought it was
so
more
much
of a
higher.
ballad. I didn't hate it.
Wait, Scott, say that again. Scott,
can
you say that again?
I said yes. It was following on the tails of Spock's song, but she took it just so much higher. That is such a good song.
But yeah,
I was
from a
singing
range
that when I was
and
watching the episode last night.
All right,
and a talent perspective, absolutely. She had a great range in that.
If I had to pick one, I think within the realms of this episode, I think it would be Lon. I think it would be I think she has a clearer voice. And she rides the top of the pitch, whereas sometimes Celia has to kind of push herself to get to the top of the pitch. Yeah, I think I would, and if you had asked me a day ago, I would have said Uhura, but I think it's Lon.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think so too. And even though that is probably my, I don't know if it's my least favorite song, but it's the most quintessential musical song. Like, this is in every musical in some way, shape, or form. And
Yeah,
like,
she has the
okay,
I Want song.
yay.
Yeah.
I loved it a lot.
But she
La'an's
sang
one
it
of my
really well.
favorites. And I thought it was such a good character development like moment for her after all of the stuff that she's been through. It was just such a good evolution for her. And I cried. It was really good.
I actually cried during the Celia Gooding song. I felt like it was just such a high crescendo, and like the key changes, building, you know, ever upwards. I thought that was really, really moving. I actually think I wish La'an's song was with Kirk versus like by herself or with Una.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the interesting background musical things that I learned from like listening to the producers, not the composers, was that once they submitted their temporary soundtrack, they started doing the video almost immediately. And so they were locked into things like time signature and media modulation and key, like that. They had to, once that temp tape went in, they didn't know that that was like it. So they had to kind of, all the changes that they made had to live inside of all of those musical decisions. Because like, I know in Celia Gooding's song, there's a ton of time signature changes. You can hear it like in the rhythm, how it changes. And they were locked into that by the time they sent their temporary music in for approval. And they were like, okay, I guess we can fix everything with lyrics and melody. Like,
Well, that's a good thing to transition into one of the questions we had. So is music just math plus emotion equals song?
I was taught from day one when I started learning how to play piano that it was all math. And if I could figure out the math, I would be a good musician.
Well, it's like 80% of it.
Except I have dysgraphia, which means that math is impossible for me because in the same way that dyslexics switch letters around, I switch numbers around, or I can't remember a simple number sequence, which is why passwords suck for me. Yeah, it's called dysgraphia. And so that, like, I was 4 years old and the piano teacher tells me it's all math. And I know, like, at the time I was reading books, I was doing all this other stuff, but when he said it was math, I was done. Like, I had to figure out how to be a musician without math. But yes, music is very math oriented.
I guess, like, you know, it depends on how you look at it, because there's some people who completely smash the rules to pieces and still manage to get the point across. But yeah, like when you learn music, you learn about like certain keys. Like a minor key has like a different emotion than like a major key, and you know the subtle shades therein. So I definitely math plays into the emotion, but there can be emotion without regard for math, if that makes sense.
I came around on all of the math themes in Spock's song. Initially, I thought they were like a bit corny, but they're pretty good, and I think it's fun in terms of like how it relates to the theme of math in music. But
yeah, music is math. Have you seen the Disney?
I mean, obviously from the name I chose this week, my favorite song was "I'm the X." I think the lyrics were really clever. I think for a non-singer, some of those low notes that Ethan Peck hits are amazing. He was one of the ones that went to meet with the songwriters, and he says, "I've never sung anything in my life." And they asked him to play a song and sing along to it, and they realized, "Oh no, you can sing. You're not a Broadway singer." but you can sing. And so they started writing more and more challenging things for him. And even they were really impressed with his vocal lines because they were maybe underestimating him a little. And it's just my favorite song because it's Spock. And like the last thing, it really brings home that this Spock is not TOS Spock. That this Spock is still struggling with this idea that like, maybe I don't have to be super Vulcan all the time. But he still expresses that through calculus and through algebra and all those other things I never studied. But I liked that. I liked that the wordplay. I liked him showing the emotions. Like, I mean, I don't think Lon's song is the only other I can think of where we really got to dig into a character a little bit. Because there was nothing really surprising in Chapel's song.
Yeah,
she's always been kind of, I'm just going to do whatever feels good in the moment. Whereas I think I'm the X is like the real expression of emotion that's happening inside a character that we don't get to see usually in that way.
I enjoy that they worked so very hard to make his range fit within this song. You could tell like he's not pushing himself to an uncomfortable place, and the way that his vocals sort of like the way that the melody goes just fits with his like baritone very well. I think that's baritone, but yeah, like
the low notes were D's, which is considered baritone bass. The very low notes the lowest notes he hits are D's below C. You know what I mean? Very low notes on that staff thing.
Go ahead, Ren.
I was just going to say I hated their musical breakup a little bit, though. I did like that it propelled us into I'm the X. After building that romance up for 2 seasons and all of that pining, and then he gets dumped in a song because of an influencing anomaly, and then that just like sticks and they don't really talk about it.
I don't know if I agree with that, because I feel like in those old scientists, both of them learned that this relationship is not supposed to last forever. And from what I know of Chapel, if I heard that, I'd be like, all right, then I'm just going to cut it off now.
Yeah,
it's very realistic.
I can see the rationale, and I thought the setup for it was fine. It was just, for me, it had the same energy as, I don't know if you guys all watched Scrubs, but they started off with like, 1 or 2 seasons of pining for JD and Elliot, and then they get together, and immediately he's like, oh, I don't want her. And they just break up and start pining again, and it was terrible. And I'm just like, why did you do this?
It's very like Pam and what's his face from The Office.
I think that was the official title, was what's his face.
Yeah, it's PB and
Jim.
Pam Beasley, Jim. Shoot.
I really thought it was the way that Chapel handled this relationship emotionally was really out of alignment with how strongly she felt towards him up until that point. It was like as soon as they got into an entanglement, it was all downhill, just like crashed like a Hindenburg. He was bad. And like she made absolutely no effort whatsoever to be restorative or talk about it or like hash things out with Spock. Like even the acceptance of the fellowship, she never told him. He found out. So it's like her communication skills just suddenly got really bad.
I'm not going to put it entirely on her shoulders though, because Spock was being damned. He is the boyfriend that goes through your phone.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to bring something like that up.
He was talking to Uhura and saw like, oh, Christine got a thing from the thing she applied to. Can you tell me what's in it? And that means already he doesn't trust Chapel to tell him the thing. That's why
she didn't though. And she
I know, but I'm saying like they're both guilt. I don't know. They both did things that are questionable in an egalitarian, healthy relationship. How's
Well,
that?
he did leave his fiance, so there was a little bit of like pressure.
Well, he didn't really leave her. Yeah, this is
I
just
blew up my life.
Chapel's just his side piece.
Yeah.
So following up on Norman's question here, that kind of brings us to a weird question. Could a universe based on the laws of musicals actually sustain itself?
Nobody ever eats or shits, so no. Well, if they do eat, it's like
there's gonna be some songs
human
about
meat
that. Oh my
pies.
gosh.
Yeah, if they do eat, it's human meat pies, or it's blood. If you do Little Shop of
Dancing
Horrors.
dinnerware can feed you food if you go the Disney route.
Yeah, I guess they do even bring up, are we going to turn into bunnies in this one? And like, that got random. I felt like that was the most random question.
Oh, no,
it's a reference to the Buffy musical.
So it's reference to the Buffy musical,
Oh,
and
sure, why
it's
not?
a reference to TAS, where there was an episode with bunnies in it. And also Lon says something about attacking. You're going to make me think of this. About attacking Klingons from the aft side, and that's also a reference.
Yeah, taking out their aft torpedoes.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
I
don't know. All musical episodes lately seem to have to measure up to the Buffy musical, and I never saw it.
Oh, it's really good. This one is better, I will say, in terms of the overall like quality of the songs and the singing. But the Buffy musical was definitely what they took inspiration from. It was also diegetic. They had a demon that like comes into town and forces everyone to sing and dance. And they also all are forced to reveal their feelings, having like very widespread emotional implications. And it was a payoff for a huge plot point in the prior season where one character dies and is resurrected, and they all thought the character was in hell, and it turns out the character was actually in heaven. So they like ripped this person out of heaven and brought them back to earth, and they have to like process that in song. It's great. I definitely recommend it.
The only time I've ever seen the Buffy musical was a reenacted version of it on a stage in like a bar. But somebody who was like a massive fan of that musical episode was deeply disappointed by this episode and what it chose to. Yes. Because like this isn't going to be something of that caliber is what her letdown was. Like it's not going to be something that people are going to reenact. It's not like classic in the same way. And it could have been
within 2 days. I was able to find karaoke versions of all of the songs not released by Paramount. I also know somebody who went to a karaoke bar and found I'm the X in the book. So it's out there already for people to perform. Maybe not the whole show, but at least the songs are getting out there and being used. So
I think what holds it back from being like classic, and I do agree with her in this sense that like the plot wasn't really actually moved forward with the songs. They were singing about their emotions, but the only forward moving song was the song about the breakup, and that was just sort of like a throwaway line at the end. And yeah, that was it. And it was just sort of like Spock is just left there to like, he doesn't sing back to her,
Yeah, you say it's at the end, but like the whole song is kind of about that. If not the song, just the way they went about it, because all the bars dancing and laughing, having a good time, and she's clearly directing this at Spock, who's famous for not showing emotion. So I think kind of like there was an overall effect that the whole thing was having on him, even if she wasn't specifically saying, "Yeah, we're done now."
There's
also, are
a
those
lot
two
of
twins? I think they're twins.
The Zebulon sisters. I don't know.
Which were the twins on Voyager?
Delaney
sisters.
Yes, the Delaney sisters.
There's this undercurrent of contempt in this song that I don't quite understand towards Spock. Like I'm hot, hot to trot, but then like
my interpretation of that was, again, she does not like being in long-term relationships, and I bet you at this point she's also fighting in her own mind, if I stay and don't go on this little science thing, then maybe I can develop my relationship with Spock. So she's got some even inner hate going on, going like, am I making the right decision? Or do I really want to put my bones on staying with Spock, even though I know it's not the forever trail? It's just an interesting. So I find that in that song, there's a little bit of emotional back and forth.
Yes, and some of that is on Chapel, because one episode before this is, Under the Cloak of War, where he's trying to be there for her, despite not knowing what it was she went through in the Klingon War, and she's pushing him away a little bit, which is like kind of understandable because it's PTSD. There's just a little bit of this that is on her.
Yeah, and she just pushed him away as soon as he offered support. Like, nah, that's that kind of that rejection of an emotional bit is a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I feel like it's just what Boimler told her 2 episodes before has finally fully sunken in, and she realizes, and then she goes through Under the Cloak of War, and then that kind of pushes and realizes, hey, Spock he doesn't quite get it. He's not for me. And then he's going, like you guys pointed out, he'd go and throw her phone. Yeah, that gets weird. I think she's justified. I think it's really realistic, and more than that, it's the best song of the episode.
I think it's interesting how Spock felt very young in this episode. Like, you really got the sense that he was like a young man falling in love for the first time and like getting his heart broken for the first time. And it was kind of like he hasn't felt quite so young to me the entire rest of the series. Like, up until this episode, he just felt so out of his depth, and just that moment when he says, "I'm hurt," like, it just gets me.
And in a way, they did talk to each other in musical theater, like, interpretation, in that they're singing the same song, but it's highly highlighting the difference in their relationship between what Chapel thinks of it and what Spock thinks of it. Because it's the same melody, it's just set differently. So I think in that musical theater way, when like the guy comes on stage and says, "I love the girl," and then the girl comes on stage and says, "I don't love the guy," and then they have an awkward conversation, and then it's over. Like, so I feel like singing the 2 songs back to back that were basically the same in melody is a conversation.
So let's go back to the beginning for a minute. What did you guys think about the alternate intro with the extra chorusing and stuff?
I liked it so much.
It was so fun.
I've been trying to figure out if the percussion is beatboxing or if they've actually singing to a track, because everything else sounds a cappella. And I know there's some really good beatboxers out there with a cappella groups, but I don't know. I've listened to it a couple of times, really trying to hear for the mouth sounds, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think some of the ahs and oohs might be synthetic.
I hate when oohs and ahs are synthetic. I can only do organic.
I'm farm to aesthetics, so like
Oohs and ahs.
I grow my own oohs and ahs in the back in my backyard.
I think they understood that a lot of people wanted this, and they knew that like they're gonna play the heck out of every musical trope, push it as far as they can for one episode, because it's only going to be one episode. I don't think they're gonna do this again. It's not gonna be like a yearly tradition. So, but like this is a thing that a lot of people have been looking forward to for a long time. Like, I would think DS9 would have been a great show to do the musical episode. And also that episode of Voyager where the Doctor is singing, like,
Virtuoso.
So close. Yeah.
Several of them. He's got a lot of singing episodes.
Yeah.
I think it's wild how many people who didn't like this episode, and it's fine if people didn't like the episode. My parents didn't like the episode. I loved it, obviously, but I saw so many people that were like, Star Trek's just gone out of control here. This is the most ridiculous thing they've ever done. I'm like, there's an episode where people get sucked into a board game. There's a Scottish ghost story episode.
There's a lot worse.
Like, what are you talking about? It's amazing that that there hasn't been a musical until now. I'm shocked it hadn't happened already.
I think Star Trek is a lot of different things to different people, but I do get the impression that they just take a small like portion of Star Trek and then form the show's identity around that versus
and then
like
forget about the rest.
Yeah, and there's like such an amazing amount of silliness in TOS, especially. I mean, there's like one line that Pike says to Uhura towards the end where he's like, I don't even remember. But it just felt like the kind of camaraderie that's very TOS like. And it's like that this is a bunch of people singing and dancing in space. They've been, you know, it's not that deep. It doesn't have to be every single time.
Star Trek, there's more than 800 episodes now, and pretty much everything below 500 are layers of bad. Only the bottom 100 is like absolutely unwatchable, and even some of those are fun. And then you got another 200 like this that are like, well, that was interesting. You tried something, it didn't always work. That's where I'm at least with it. It's nowhere near the worst of Star Trek, but it's
absolutely.
No.
Trek is.
I think it's one of those. I think it's going to be one of those episodes where you're going to be in the mood for it. Like, you're going to be like, tonight I want to watch Star Trek. What do I want to watch? Hey, wouldn't it be fun to watch Subspace Rhapsody again? Yeah, I think that in the same way that I do watch Move Along Home when I'm in the right mood for it. When I want goofy, because I like goofy stuff.
I love the silly episodes. I don't really skip the silly ones if I'm doing like a rewatch or have it on in the background. They're fun. They just make me happy. And I used to watch, I started watching Star Trek as like a little child. So the silly episodes used to be some of my favorites because I was a kid. Like people are like, oh, I hate rascals. I was like, well, when I was a rascal, I loved it.
Yeah, I saw that in first run when I was a little younger than those kids, and it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the last song, the screenshot you're showing here, the last song is the weakest. I didn't like that.
Can I be like a musical theater snob for a second? It drives
you haven't been already?
I know, basically. It drives me crazy that when they're in the hallway and the hallway reverses and then they're doing the dance, that you can hear footfalls. Even in live theater, you are trained not to make sound when your feet hit the floor. And they didn't mute it. They didn't like try to blend it into anything. You can just hear those footfalls from all of those dancers. And it made me want to go back to drama school when I was young, where I could still yell things at people and be like, you're not supposed to do it that way. But if you think I'm a musical theater snob now, you should have met me when I was like 8.
Like they should have super glued felt to the bottoms of their shoes or something.
Or put a Marley floor down that's not black, because you can do that too. There's a lot of things you can do. I mean, I was in a hip hop show. I know how to land on my feet where you can't hear it. And I know the secrets that theaters use so that you can land on your feet and no one will hear it. And so that was just, I don't know, that was my one like real nitpick of the whole thing, was like, oh, you can hear their footfalls.
I just hated the way that the vocals were layered. Something about the way the vocals were mixed towards the end in this song just sounded very discordant to me. Like they didn't really mix well together.
Well, there's also a ton of key changes. A ton.
Yeah, I didn't see anything overly wrong with the last song. It was serviceable. It's a grand finale song in a musical. I don't really have an opinion, good or bad, on it. It just kind of is. My favorite thing is actually about this, and I wish I had a screenshot of it. It's when the Enterprise and the Klingon ships are like in space and they're doing a cool little synchronized thing. I liked that. That was fun.
That was cute.
That was the best part.
It was such an Esther Williams reference. Like I lost it because I think Esther Williams is gorgeous. But it looked like a water ballet in the middle of like an old Hollywood musical.
Yes. That was exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. The part I liked about it,
Williams.
yeah. Yeah, the part I liked about it was when the Klingons are doing their thing and everybody's like, why are Klingons doing K-pop and not singing Klingon opera? There's this one shot in the middle of it where it cuts back to the Enterprise, and I think it's Uhura looks over at Sam, and Sam is getting into it.
Yeah.
And I freaking love that. Like, all right, Sam likes K-pop. Cool. But the one nitpick I have about this song, honestly, the idea of the entire crew coming together and singing like this, I feel like that makes more sense on an episode of Lower Decks, because we have seen more of the Lower Decks of the Cerritos. You know, we've seen more of the crew and seen them working together.
They have 2 chorus rooms on them.
A big number would be amazing.
Yeah, here they're like, yeah, we'll have the whole crew sing, and it's like, oh yeah, who are you people? I don't know any of you.
I guess like what they could have sung about, because the last song was lyrically just like, we're on a ship together, and that's not really meaningful and not really like emotionally resonant to me. They could have talked about like how they work together, teamwork, like specifically their relationships. It just didn't do much.
I felt the lead-in where Uhura was like, imagine the odds of us all being, how many times have I said that at large gatherings? Like, what are the odds that this exact chemistry of people are all in the same place at the same time? Isn't that amazing? I was like, oh God. But then the song got better.
I feel like that and the ending feels like a song that Cartman would have sung on South Park. Like, well, we're all here together. What's the odds that we all here at the same time? You know, it's a very Cartman-like song.
It was very cloying, and I feel like that could have been a way to tie everybody's stories together. It didn't really do that. It was just about the ship and them all being on the ship, and that's not really. That's a hollow sentiment to put in it, to stretch out for an entire song.
I also think that like usually group finales like this, or there's at least one group number where they start to lace all the solo songs together. Like think One Day More from Les Mis, like the idea that they find a way to knit all the storylines together. Both go ahead.
Like a reprise.
And the Klingon K-pop thing, there exists a version where in Klingon opera instead of Klingon pop. They shot it twice with both endings, but the composers really liked the K-pop version. So they went with the K-pop version.
Give it to me, Paramount. Give it to me.
I mean, to be honest, I love that it's Bruce Horak. I would hate it that much more if it weren't. But yeah, considering Klingons are some of the only other races that we know like multiple genres of, to like add Kling pop to this, it is a what the fuck moment indeed, Norman. So before we run out of too much time, we should probably all run through what our favorite and least favorite song of the episode is. I'll start with me and we'll go around the clock. My favorite is Chapel Song, hands down. And I love that they even kind of realize that at the end and have Uhura like, oh, sorry, earworm. Yeah, it's for me, that's the only like really, really solid song that helps even tie into what's going on through the series. And the worst song, aside from Kling Pop, it's a tie for me, I think, between either one of Una's songs, really. The one with Kirk, which is just superfluous, but like I like the advice that she gives. But I can't even with that one with her and Lan. It doesn't do it for me. Go ahead, Del.
My favorite song is "I'm the X." I can listen to that 100 million times a day. My least favorite song is "Status Report."
I think my favorite song is definitely Celia Gooding's "We're All Connected, Keep Us Connected." That's a really good song. I think it really goes talks about her backstory in a way that is emotionally resonant with her. her position on the ship. She has like a line or two about Hemmer in there. I thought that was really lovely.
Nice.
But the last song, I don't really see much emotional value in it. And for a grand finale, I think you want to hit that crescendo.
Yeah, my favorite was How Would That Feel? I cried. It was close with Keep Us Connected because that one's also so good. But I love La'an. I love her journey. And that song just like did so much for me emotionally. It was so good. And like some of those notes she hit the first time I listened to it gave me little chills. Like it was excellent. And then, yeah, I have to agree that Una's songs didn't do a ton for me, and I think Connect to Your Truth like was so forgettable that when I was talking about the episode in my initial video on it, I kind of forgot about it altogether. It's it's fine, it's there. It's got cute moments, but it's just does the least for me, and I don't care about it much.
All right. Top song would definitely be Keep Us Connected. As for the worst, I believe it's the one from that screenshot. Like honestly, so forgettable. I can't remember what it is, just about Una telling on about keeping secrets and lowering gravity for no reason. I don't know.
I just love that she had to like lower the gravity intentionally. That was just so silly. It was so silly.
We all float down here.
So then the last regular question I have before we get into rankings, what did you think about the TOS theme Unadulterated just playing as kind of a palate cleanser after the musical was over?
It makes sense as a musical, but not if they didn't already play it.
I wish, and this is the only time I would make this wish, that they included the Roddenberry lyrics and have someone sing it. It's a musical.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed we didn't get that in general.
Like it's a music. I hate it, and I never want to hear it. But in this particular case, I would be like, yes, please do the vocal version.
It's the only way you can do it and not have it be ridiculous.
I honestly wish that
because the reason it exists. Because he did it literally to steal the royalties from the person who composed the theme music.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want him to be rewarded for that even posthumously in any way. That just sucked.
I honestly wish they just ended the episode right there. I feel like the conversations that happen thereafter aren't necessary, and we can kind of fill in the blanks in ourselves, and like those conversations don't necessarily have to be in front of us for us to know that they took place.
Yeah, I think usually finales you leave the stage. What we have here is kind of the cast party, where they're like, "We did it! It was great."
I hate the bit where Chapel and Spock, like she like looks at Spock and like there's that moment, and then he's like no, and she's like, all right, like oh, okay.
I just never have like seen someone have so much emotion and so much anticipation and so much tension around somebody, and then when they have like a connection with them, they put absolutely no effort in building that or maintaining that at all. Like not even a little.
That's all I'm saying.
It's better to want than to have. Not to quote another musical theater thing. A slotted spoon can carry the potato.
So before we get to our out of 10s, first things first, we're going to add an extra week to our roster. We were going to take a little break around Christmas. Instead, I've never done anything on my channel that wasn't related to Star Trek, and we'll try to tie it in a little bit, but we're going to talk about Christmas movies, just generally what movies that we like, don't like. There's a million of them. There's some great and terrible specials. Looking at you, Star Wars 1970 whatever. Yeah, I knew it was somewhere right after the first one there. So yeah, so we're gonna add that either the 23rd or 24th.
I saw the Star Wars episode when I was a kid, not to eat myself. And all I remember was I wanted to know more about the Wookiee holiday. If that says anything about the kind of person I am, like all I wanted to know was like the lore of the holiday. Like, why is this day and how does it come? And yeah.
I just want to know, like, no subtitles. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
All right, so let's do our out of 10s for this episode. This started as a 1 for me because I don't do musicals. My wife is still at a 1 after forcing her to rewatch it today. But I'm at like a 4. And what that means in the grand scheme of Trek, I'm looking at my giant list where I have everything ranked, and I've got it somewhere in the low 400s. Like, it's serviceable. It's above it's like 300 or 400 above the craptacular ones. But it doesn't hit me at the end of the day. It's just a generic musical that does have a couple of things going for it to move the story forward. So that's where it gained some points. It wasn't just a complete, oh, well, we did this for the sake of doing it. At least it pushed some story forward. And that's where I'm at. Go ahead, Del.
I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. And you guys know I don't do that.
No.
So here's why. There's a lot of things about this episode that I don't like. But for me, in my little universe, if I'm going to pick one episode of Strange New Worlds to watch, it's either going to be this one, and I'm not going to remember the title of the other one, the fairy tale one. Like, those are so far my two favorite. Yeah. My two favorite Strange New Worlds episode. And I liked this one more than I liked the other one. And I like complaining about musical theater things. So I like complaining about the footfalls and other stuff. But all in all, like, I think this is probably going to be one of my favorite episodes.
If we're comparing it to other Star Trek episodes, I would not rank it very high. If we're comparing it to other musicals, I also would not rank it very high. I personally would put this episode out of 5. I feel like they could have geared the music more towards characters interfacing with one another to push the story of the episode itself forwards. Instead, the actual like plot of the episode, which we haven't even talked about, which is like that rift that they were trying to seal shut, was just really took a big backseat to most of the things that were happening, and they missed an opportunity to have La'an sing to Kirk, to have Kirk and Chapel sing to each other about their feelings. It's just like they kind of put the characters facing away from each other to like exposit their feelings, and that's it. And the last song was kind of a disappointment too, but it still managed to be entertaining. I thought there was some clever parts, like with Pike arguing with his girlfriend in front of everybody and trying not to. And there's other episodes where, the ship is inflicted with something that everybody's involuntarily acting in, everybody is a little wonky. So I harken back to those kinds of episodes too. So I think it's a 5, definitely.
I really, really liked it. I would say I'm also probably close to a 10, but I am also a soft touch when it comes to ratings. I will just hand high ratings out for anything that I liked even a little bit, admittedly. And I loved the emotional journeys for the characters, even though that is a great point that they didn't turn towards each other and were turned away from each other. But it's still just, there were so many little arcs that were kind of encapsulated for each of the characters. I really liked how, we kind of got that culmination of Uhura's arc, processing her grief for her family and for Hemmer. And La'an's big emotional song just gets me. like her big emotional moments this season in general were really amazing for a character that was so bottled up at the start when we got to know her, and just seeing that come out in song in such a moving way, I loved it. Yeah, made me feel many feelings. I loved the Buffy musical too. I listened to the soundtrack for like 2 weeks whenever I went on a little bike ride. Like, I'm obsessed. It's so good.
Sorry, so what was that for a rating? Because I'm putting them in
10.
Okay. Right, 10. Like it. Okay. I'm going to go with, what did I say? An 8.5, and I will tell you why. So I think I mentioned, yeah, I was a drama club geek. We didn't actually do many musicals, thank God, because I don't think I would have ever done anything more than a background character. But yeah, I've enjoyed musicals since I was a kid. I mean, I'm pretty sure we all grew up watching Disney stuff. So the fact that the musical portion of it kind of takes away from the progression of characters in the season as a whole doesn't bother me so much, because we've seen other Star Trek episodes do that. I mean, DS9 took an episode off to play baseball. No, I didn't have any problem with that. And as for, the songs themselves, I think I enjoy most of them. Well, before we were talking about reviewing them, I would be like on my way home from work or whatever on YouTube and playing at least 2 or 3 of them on the way. So I don't know about rewatchability, but the songs definitely have re-listenability. Not necessarily going to put them on my Spotify playlist, but I enjoy listening to them. What the heck? Oh. And I think apart from that nitpick about the last song, when I said it should have been a lowered X, this is serious. Based on the fact that, it was basically Uhura who saved the day, and Keep Us Connected is my favorite song. I am absolutely adamant that this should have been the episode that was dedicated to Nichelle Nichols.
Absolutely.
That's fair, especially because Nichelle was a musical actress, and dancer, amazing at both, amazing at everything. So, yeah, I wish they did that too.
Oh yeah, she almost left Trek for Broadway, wasn't it?
Yes, until Martin Luther King was like, "Hey, maybe don't do that."
We need you.
Though at the same time, I mean, this whole episode, we probably got more great scenes with Uhura than the whole of TOS. Maybe not the movies included, but
I do enjoy Nichelle Nichols singing to Spock in TOS, though. That's actually the thing
That's
that
right.
charmed me
It's
into
cool.
watching TOS was that scene, how she knew that Spock was gonna kind of cringe inside, but she's just having fun with him, and it was so lighthearted and wonderful.
Nice. So any further thoughts on this episode before we get out of here?
Sometimes we talk about episodes and we say that's the Pike episode, or that's the, is that really the Ortegas episode?
Yeah, we didn't get one.
This one, I feel like, and I know we've had other ones, but I really feel like this was La'an's episode, in that she is painted as a hardcore introvert. And so I think that's why it made sense for her to sing her song by herself, because it's not just that she doesn't have the balls to really talk to Kirk until she, talks to Una about it, but it's also, she's at least admitting that she has these feelings and how much that's in conflict with who she is. And I feel, because we don't know very much about La'an's history except for, oh God, the Gorn. And I would love to see how some of the closed mind, like the close-heartedness, comes from being related to Khan, but they're not going there yet. But I really do feel like this feels like La'an's episode to me.
That's fair.
Yeah, I can see that. She's got the most extra plot going on.
I do wonder, like, what if they made the songs just a little bit catchier? What if they made some reprises throughout? Like, I wonder if they just took a little bit more time with the construction of this and how the songs buttress the characters and the plot of the episode itself, like how it would have turned out, because all like it's a it seems like kind of pushed together.
They did this in 6 weeks.
5 weeks. 5 weeks during COVID. They were writing songs via Zoom.
That's a good point.
Yeah, with that in consideration, like, it blows my mind. Like, I couldn't write something like this in like months.
And they didn't really give them a lot to go on in the beginning. It was like they were expecting the composers to come up with like the conceit. And the composers were like, we're not Star Trek people. We're musicians. Like, you're going to have to help us come up with some of this stuff. And also, I wanted to mention really quickly, the reason Kay Henley was brought in is because they wanted a woman to write some of the songs that were going to be sung by female characters. They really wanted sort of that representation and that point of view, especially on a show like Star Trek, where everything tends to be a little militaristic, a little bit like you got to put if you're feminine, then that's something wrong with you. Like, the idea of letting these women express all these different emotions in a way that feels natural to them, I think was a big consideration that made the episode better.
Oh my gosh, yes. I just watched an old episode that was along those lines that had me really annoyed. Who Mourns for Adonis? Because Scotty's interested in this lieutenant, and then Kirk and McCoy have this conversation about, well, if they get together and have a relationship, next thing you know, she's gonna be out of Starfleet, wanting to start a family. Like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they initially were like, oh yeah, you can't have female captains in Starfleet. I'm so glad they retconned that. TOS has just like, they meant well, but they have problems.
To say the least.
Oh, and one more thing. Best line of the episode absolutely goes to Pike, who's just like, well, that happened.
Oh, Pike's reaction to all the singing, I think, is one of my favorite underrated parts of the episode. Like, he's just, the man's seen it all, so he's just like, okay, we're doing this now.
All right, so we ended up at like a 6.5, right in a little bit above the middle. I guess that's pretty good considering most people I've seen are just, they're either 10s or 1s. So for us to be a little bit above the median here, I guess that says something. And so we'll catch you guys next week for the final episode. I don't even remember it because it's so underwhelming compared to the last two that we've done, and left us on a cliffhanger that might be Trek's longest cliffhanger ever waiting on.
They did that. They should have done a 2-parter. That was so mean.
I mean, who knew that they were going to get that strike and other stuff happen? But
but a whole year at best case is still just way too long. My arms are tired. I can't hang on a cliff for this long.
You're not cliffhanger.
Yeah, I know Trek Culture recently, as they reported it, they're like, we're hopeful that we'll get it by the end of 2024. I'm like, I don't think we're headed anywhere but 2025 with season 3.
If we're lucky.
Okay.
I will say I wish the episodes were less complicated so that they could put out more of them. Like, I could get with a more simpler set with cheaper costumes. Like, I would be okay with all of this if we could get 23 episodes, because then episodes like this, I think, won't get so much under the heel because there's more breathing room for more serious episodes. And so I wish that was a thing, but it's not.
Yeah,
but then that leaves more room for the Code of Honor.
Between the musical and the animated episode, where that was a choice.
Yeah, this season in general, it had some highs and lows and took some big swings, and it didn't always connect, but it really tried, and I can't fault it. It's better than most of the rest of Trek.
That's what I respect about it. Like, this episode is a premise that folks have been anticipating for a long time, but it's also a very interesting balancing act, because they could have gone in so many directions. They could have made this just like fully a silly, goofy dream sequence, like, oh, what a weird dream kind of thing. And they didn't. They made it so that like it emotionally like gave exposition to the characters, even if it didn't necessarily move the plot forward.
Every time you say that, I always sorry, I had a reference and then it fell out of my head. But you said it twice, and both times I was like, that reminds me of this other thing, but I can't remember what it was. Oh well.
All right. Well, let's get out of here. We'll be back next week with Hegemony, and the week after, somewhere in there, to do a Christmas special. So until then, thank all my lovely co-hosts for joining us today, and thank all of you for joining. So until I see you again,